Hello and welcome to Module 2, Week 2. In this concept video, we are going to discuss how to set goals and, more importantly, how to accomplish them. In this video, specifically, we're going to focus on goals in your career path because this class is ultimately focused on how to help you find success within your career trajectory in the field of psychology. So I'm going to read a couple of questions, and I would like you to just pause the video so that you can take a couple of moments to think about the questions and write down some answers to these. So first, ultimately, why are you here at Sacramento State? What brought you here and what do you hope to accomplish? Is it just to get a degree, or is it because you think that degree is going to get you somewhere? And if so, where is that somewhere? Where are you headed? And what is that long-term career goal that you might have? And as you think about these, and again, if you need more time to think, which you probably do, go ahead and just pause the video and sort of jot some thoughts down. But as you think about it, I want you to think about what you really want out of life, what you want to accomplish long term. And I want you to dream big. I know it's really easy sometimes to think about our goals, especially in our career, as influence from other people around us, right? For example, for me, my original career was largely influenced by my family. My father owns an electrical engineering company. So when I was in high school, I was preparing to go into electrical engineering. And that is where I originally started in my college courses. And that's where I thought I would wind up career wise. Obviously, I didn't. Spoiler alert. However, it really didn't take very long of taking some classes for me to realize that that field really wasn't for me. I didn't enjoy the coursework. I wasn't really enjoying the job. I was working at another engineering firm and I wasn't really loving it. It just wasn't the right fit for me. So when I stopped and asked myself what I really enjoyed and what I wanted to do, I started finding classes that held my interest, and school wasn't work anymore, but actually something that I really enjoyed. So as you think about your goal, I want you to think about what goal are you willing to work hard and stay up late for and accomplish goals for, to put in the effort, but maybe not have it feel like work because it's something you're passionate about. Now, of course, there are some practicality issues that we have to think about as well, such as what is important to you for your life satisfaction in the long run. So this brings up questions like, is job security really important for you? Is financial stability really important for you? Or is doing what you love the most important thing? And as we go through the module this week, so we're in module 2, week 2, I want you to start really thinking about what career goal is the right fit for you. It should be something you're passionate about because you're most likely going to spend more time working than doing anything else in your life. So if you want it to be something you're going to enjoy, okay? Now, every job, of course, has its positive and negative. So I'm not saying you should enjoy every single aspect of your job, but you should enjoy the work you do overall. There's always going to be a balance between the work you love and other aspects of it, like a financial reward, right? So, for example, most teachers are not going to succeed financially in the same way that someone in the engineering or tech world will. And so you might have to ask yourself, how important is that aspect of the job to you? Now, as we start thinking about our career goals, it's also really important to think about what that next best thing would be. So you need to have options. I call this having a plan A and having a plan B. A lot of times when we talk to students, I'll ask them questions to gauge what their specific interests are and what they hope to do in their long-term career goals. And as you start thinking about and preparing for your goals, it's important that you're also preparing other options. And I'll talk about myself and how I did this, but ultimately, you need to remember that whatever your backup plan is, you need to plan for it. Okay, so that if you ever need to switch your career trajectory, it's important that you have something else that you've been preparing for. And I'm really focusing on career goals since this is what this class is focused on. But it could be a goal in any aspect of your life. It doesn't only have to be about career or academic goals, but really anything. So for example, this past year has been a really tumultuous one for many people, if not everyone across the globe. And there have been so many things going on that sometimes it's hard to know where to place your energy and time. And one of my goals this year was to become more aware of the time I spend on my devices or my phone and social media. Now, before the pandemic, I was on my device a lot, as most people were. But when we were forced into lockdown and I was home pretty much all of the time, I couldn't do anything else, I couldn't go anywhere else. I realized how much of my time was being eaten up by mindless scrolling or device time, right? So I've really tried to be more aware of this and set little goals for myself to ensure that I wasn't on my phone or device all the time, especially since now I'm already staring at my screen most of the time as a professor, as a teacher who's lecturing online, right? I'm always looking at the computer. I'm constantly working on the computer and grading on the computer. So I don't want to have an excess of screen time outside of what I'm already doing for work. For some of you, maybe you had a goal of being more involved or gaining more knowledge on politics and things going on in our world today, because there's a lot going on, right? So when we talk about goals, it's not only the goals in our career, but really in any aspect of life. So whatever goal you are looking at, whether it be academic, career, or personal goal, these strategies for picking a long-term goal are important, with the first step being identifying the goal. And that really comes from asking yourself a lot of questions about what is important for you. Now, when you think about having a plan A and plan B, like I said, you need to prepare for your plan B. So when I was originally getting ready to go to grad school, I actually applied or it kind of got started and getting ready for the graduate application process late. I really didn't realize that I wanted to go until I was almost halfway through my junior year. No, I was almost done with my junior. I was going into my senior year at Sac State and realized, oh my gosh, I want to apply to grad school. I had about 6 months to get it together, to meet all the requirements, make sure I met them all, take the GRE, get all the letters of rec and so on and so on. So I was rather cognizant of the fact that I might not get in, right? Because I was kind of joining the process much later than most people were when you're planning on going to graduate school. Now, obviously, even if you're coming late to the game, don't ever not apply, because I applied even though I thought I wouldn't get in, and I did get in, which was very exciting. But I did have a plan B, okay, because I knew that my plan A might not work out. So I had a plan B. There was a research lab I was going to work in for a year. I was going to take a couple extra classes on the side just to kind of beef up my resume and so on and so forth. But that plan B that I had was actually a plan. Okay. I had sort of mapped out what my year off would look like if I didn't get into grad school. So when you have a plan B, you need to prepare that plan B. It can't just be something that you're winging. Have a plan A that you prepare for, and a plan B that you prepare for. Now, once we identify a long-term goal, the next step is to break that long-term goal into sub-goals. So these sub-goals are going to be goals that you can cross off, check off, they are concrete and they're obtainable, right? And they will ultimately get you to your long-term goal. Think about a previous goal of yours. Did you accomplish it? If you did, think about what behaviors assisted you in accomplishing it. And if you did not accomplish that goal, think about what behaviors hindered or distracted you from accomplishing it. I think this is really important in self-reflection as to why we are or are not reaching our goals, and also to think about what works for us individually and what doesn't. So just because something worked for me or for somebody else doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work for you too. And so we want to make sure that we're spending a little time reflecting on what has or has not worked for you in the past. Okay. Now, I'll give you an example of a long-term goal I had when I was an undergrad. Of course, like I mentioned before, my long-term goal was getting into graduate school. So that was sort of the big, lofty goal. Now, when you're taking your undergrad courses, the thought of taking on an extra 3 to 5 years of schooling can seem really daunting, right? And the number of steps you have to take to even just apply to graduate school is really overwhelming. There's so many steps you have to take. Don't even think about what goes on in graduate school, but just to apply to a graduate program, it's a lot of work. But like I said, we can break these long-term goals that might be overwhelming into sub-goals that are more doable. Okay, so the first sub-goal I had, so my long-term goal is getting into grad school. My first sub-goal, I had many, but one was getting involved with a lab in the research area that I wanted to study for graduate school. So I started sitting in on a few different labs to see where exactly my interests were. So I knew that my long-term goal was getting into grad school, but I wasn't entirely sure yet what exactly I wanted to study. So I started with my first sub goal of finding a lab and being accepted into the lab as a research assistant so I could get some experience. But I even broke that sub goal into a sub goal itself. And that was just getting exposure to different research. So before I could even pick a lab and apply to that lab to get in, I first needed to get exposure to all the labs that were available. So I have a sub goal of a sub goal, right? Um, so that's just one small example of having a long-term goal and breaking that into sub goals that don't seem as overwhelming as the long-term goal can sometimes feel. The other thing I want to mention is my long-term career goals have changed over the years several times, in fact. So keep in mind that giving yourself a long-term goal doesn't mean that you have to stick to it. It just means that you're giving yourself a focus and a direction to move forward. So as you are setting your goals, remember a few things. I know it's really easy sometimes to think about a goal, maybe your career goal, and be hesitant or question whether you can really accomplish that. But for right now, I want you to put that aside and I want you to focus on the things you can do moving forward to make yourself as competitive for accomplishing that long-term goal as you can be. Now, I know for myself, I would sometimes focus on the past or things that I wish I could change, go back and do over, but that's not how you're going to move forward, right? It's not productive. So I want you to focus on the things you can change and the things you can alter moving forward. In addition, once you get that long-term goal set, you want to start creating a timeline that is going to help you break that long-term goal into sub-goals that aren't overwhelming so you can succeed at it. So you will notice my own first step in accomplishing a sub-goal was getting into a research lab. But that was broken down to even just having exposure, right? So sitting in on different labs to see which one piqued my interest. And it was really just finding and applying for opportunities. And that's really a sub goal in and of itself that helped me feel successful when I was looking to the long-term goal of graduate school. Because really, there's no penalty for applying or searching out an opportunity. The worst that could happen is someone says no, and then you just look for another opportunity somewhere else, right? It doesn't set you back or harm your progress in any way. So this is one of my mottos in really with anything in life. I always say, if you want something, just ask. The worst that could happen is that they say no, which really isn't that bad. Really make sure you dedicate time in your schedule to reach those goals and sub goals. So, for example, when I was looking for opportunities in research labs, I didn't want to get overwhelmed. So, instead of spending hours and hours looking for different opportunities, I set aside 1 hour once a week to look into one or two labs. And then I would reach out to those two professors who ran the lab to see if I could come sit in. I didn't spend hours and hours and hours every day researching every single lab. Okay, I focused on one or two a week until I found one that fit my interests. So think about your own schedule. So let's say Fridays are a really down day for you. You have some time. Set aside 1 hour every Friday to look for some new opportunities. Remember, if you're feeling stressed or anxious, the best thing you can do is just begin. It doesn't really matter if what you're doing is good or bad. You just need to take the first step and really begin the process. So my graduate advisor, he always used to say to us as his students, just behave. I can't help you if you do nothing, right? So he needed us to take those first few steps in whatever task it was we were trying to accomplish. So whether it be preparing a presentation for a conference or maybe presenting our thesis idea in lab, and it didn't really matter if what we did was right or wrong necessarily. We just needed to move forward so he could help, right? Either he could say, yes, you're on the right track, keep going, or no, you need to look at that a little differently. Let's try it this way. So he really needed us to engage and begin before he could then help us, right? So the best thing you can do is just begin. The last piece of advice I'll give you is remember to add in flexibility. Life happens. Cars break down, people get sick, the internet fails, the power goes out, right? Life rarely ever goes according to plan. So, as you think about setting these sub goals and reaching your long term goals, remember to be flexible. For example, if in your mind you're thinking you want to apply to graduate programs this coming year, so fall 2021, don't wait 3 months from now to start creating a timeline. Do it now, right? Make sure you are adding flexibility into your schedule so you aren't feeling rushed at the end and you're setting yourself up for success. So, hopefully, this was helpful information for you to keep in mind as you start thinking about and setting up your own long term goals.